You've heard that right. A 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has shocked collectors and dealers alike by reaching a staggering value of up to $1.1 million. And the wildest part? Most people have no idea this treasure could be hiding in their change jar right now. Back in 1978, pennies were seen as nothing special. They clinked in vending machines, jingled in pockets, and piled up in dusty coffee cans across America. Nobody was paying attention. Nobody imagined that one of these tiny copper coins would later be considered one of the most valuable mistakes in modern coinage. But in the quiet corners of the U.S. Mint, something unusual slipped through the presses. And that mistake changed everything. Collectors describe it as a miracle coin. Dealers call it a once-in-a-lifetime find. Imagine holding something in your hand so ordinary, yet so rare, that it could rewrite your financial future in an instant. That's the power of the 1978 no-mint mark penny. To understand, you need to know the hidden language of U.S. coins. Every coin usually carries a tiny letter, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, P for Philadelphia. It's the fingerprint of where that coin was born. Now here's the twist. In 1978, a small batch of pennies slipped out without their mint mark. No one noticed. They were tossed into circulation, used at gas stations, slipped into piggy banks. For years, they went completely unnoticed. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Decades later, when collectors began hunting these errors, they realized just how impossibly rare they were. Auction houses watched in disbelief as bids climbed higher and higher. What was once pocket change was suddenly the centerpiece of million-dollar bidding wars. One man's penny jar suddenly became a goldmine. And here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Most people walk right past this coin every single day, never realizing what's in their hand. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million comes down to a single tiny detail: that missing mint mark. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors whisper about them like ghost stories. Some even say finding one is like winning the lottery without ever buying a ticket. And the truth is, they're not wrong, but here's the secret no one tells you. Not every 1978 penny without a mint mark is valuable. Many were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally didn't use a mint mark on pennies at the time. The trick is knowing the subtle signs of a true rarity. Sharp, crisp lettering, an untouched strike, and pristine condition can turn this everyday coin into a life-changing discovery. And if you think condition doesn't matter, think again. One penny in poor shape might bring a few $100s. But in uncirculated condition, flawless, untouched, gleaming like it just left the mint, the value skyrockets into the hundreds of thousands. The finest known examples? They've been valued at over $1.1 million. Collectors were shocked when the first big sale was announced. A coin most people would have ignored suddenly became a dream ticket to instant wealth. Dealers scrambled to verify their inventories. Suddenly, coin rolls that had sat in basements for decades were ripped open in a frenzy of discovery. What if the penny you dropped on the floor last night, or the one buried in the couch cushions, is worth more than your car, your house, or your retirement fund? That's not fantasy. That's the reality of the 1978 no-mint mark penny. And here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night. Nobody knows exactly how many are still out there. Some believe there are only a handful left. Others think dozens remain hidden in plain sight, lost in the shuffle of ordinary change. Each new discovery sends shockwaves through the hobby, proving that the next $1 million penny could appear at any moment. Here's what you need to do. Grab a magnifying glass and look closely at any 1978 pennies you find. If there's no mint mark under the date, don't dismiss it. Study its condition carefully. If it's clean, crisp, and uncirculated, you may be holding a piece of history. The best strategy? Have it professionally graded. Dealers and grading companies can confirm authenticity, and that confirmation is what transforms a humble penny into a $1 million miracle. Think about it. One tiny copper coin, smaller than a bottle cap, has the power to change your life. Stories of collectors who found their fortune in a handful of change aren't myths. They're happening right now. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer, waiting to be discovered. Don't underestimate the coins around you. Don't ignore the ones you've had tucked away for years. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has already shocked the world with values reaching over $1.1 million. And the next one? It could be yours. So start searching. Check your change, open those old jars, and look closely at every single penny. Because the fortune of a lifetime might be hiding in the most ordinary place of all, right in your pocket. And if you want to keep uncovering secrets like this, subscribe now. The world of rare coins is full of hidden treasures, and I'll be here to guide you to the next big discovery. After all, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's a 1975 Lincoln penny with a simple D mint mark, the kind of coin you've probably tossed into a jar without even thinking twice. For most people, a penny is nothing more than 1 cent. But this tiny piece of copper has the power to change lives. Imagine finding a coin so rare, so unexpected, that it instantly transforms into a $1.2 million treasure. That's the mystery and magic behind the 1975 D Lincoln cent. Let's rewind to the mid-1970s. Gasoline was cheap, disco was exploding, and the Denver Mint was cranking out billions of pennies. Billions. The machines ran hot, day and night, spitting out cent after cent. But hidden in all that mass production, something slipped through. A flaw. A rare minting error so subtle that nearly everyone missed it. And that mistake is exactly why this coin is worth a fortune today. Collectors were stunned when the first of these rare 1975 D pennies surfaced. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Same Lincoln profile. Same familiar design. But under the right light, the secret revealed itself. A misstrike. A doubling. A tiny, almost invisible error that changed everything. One man spotted it in his pocket change, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He almost spent it. He almost used it to buy a cup of coffee. But something told him to hold on. When experts finally examined it, they couldn't believe their eyes. The details were off, the minting marks didn't line up, and the coin's surface carried clues that only a trained numismatist could decode. What seemed like a regular penny was in fact $1 million miracle. And here's the part that sends chills down every collector's spine. Most people still don't know what to look for. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Auctions have erupted with bidding wars that leave jaws on the floor. A penny that cost the U.S. Mint just fractions of a cent to make is now commanding prices up to $1.20 million. But the story doesn't stop there. Because where one rare penny exists, others may still be hiding. Sitting in piggy banks. Lurking in drawers. Lost in old jars of change. You might have one right now, and not even know it. What makes this coin so valuable isn't just the year, 1975. It isn't just the Denver D mint mark stamped proudly beneath the date. It's the mistake. A tiny, almost ghost-like doubling on the lettering. A slight shift in the strike. A flaw so rare that only a handful have ever been authenticated. That's what turns a penny into pure treasure, and if you think stories like this are exaggerations, think again. Auction records don't lie. Time after time, when one of these rare 1975 D errors hits the block, collectors battle tooth and nail to own it. One man's pocket change became a headline-grabbing $1 million payday. And the whispers in the coin community? They say there are still undiscovered pieces floating out there, waiting for someone like you to find them. But here's the danger: not every odd-looking penny is worth a fortune. Many hopeful collectors mistake scratches, wear, or machine doubling for the real deal. And that's why knowledge is everything. If you ever suspect you've got a special penny, don't spend it. Don't toss it. Protect it, and get it checked by a professional grading service. Because if you do have the real 1975 D era penny, you're holding something life-changing. Think about it: one coin. 1 cent worth more than a luxury home, more than a sports car, more than most people will ever see in their lifetime. That's the power of knowing what to look for. Look closely at the date, 1975. Right beside it, the D mint mark for Denver. Now, here's the key: study the letters and numbers under magnification. Check for doubling on the date, or the motto. In God we trust. Look for off-center strikes or unusual surface errors. These are the signs that transform an ordinary penny into a $1 million phenomenon. Collectors have trained their eyes for years to notice what others overlook. But even a beginner can stumble upon treasure if they're careful, curious, and patient. Because the truth is, these coins are still out there. Hidden in plain sight. Think about the drama of it all. A coin minted in the chaos of the 1970s, lost in circulation, forgotten by millions, only to resurface decades later as a symbol of luck, rarity, and unimaginable value. Dealers call it one of the most shocking modern finds in Lincoln cent history. And the fact that it comes from such a common year, 1975, makes the story even more unbelievable. So the next time you empty your pockets, don't ignore those pennies. Don't assume they're worthless. Because history has proven that sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest surprises. And if fate puts the 1975 Lincoln era penny into your hands, your life could change in an instant. A single 1982 Lincoln penny, the kind most of us toss aside without a second thought, shocked collectors when it sold for over $1 million. Yes, 1 cent turned into a life-changing fortune. The year was 1982. Ronald Reagan was president, gas was cheap, and the U.S. Mint was quietly preparing for one of the biggest changes in American coinage. Pennies, which had been struck in copper for generations, were suddenly too expensive to produce. The cost of copper had risen so high that the Mint made a dramatic decision: switch to a cheaper metal. Starting mid-year, the penny would no longer be 95% copper. Instead, it would be mostly zinc, coated with just a thin layer of copper to keep its familiar look. And here's where the story gets unbelievable. That year, the Mint made multiple design variations. Large date, small date. Copper, zinc. Different mints striking coins at different times. It was chaos. In all that confusion, a rare mistake slipped through the cracks. A 1982 Lincoln penny, struck with a composition it was never supposed to have. Only a handful were ever created. At first, nobody noticed. These coins slipped into circulation, hidden among billions of ordinary cents. They rattled in pockets, filled jars, and maybe even sat in candy machines. But decades later, sharp-eyed collectors began spotting subtle differences. One man weighed his penny and realized it wasn't zinc at all. It was a pure copper coin, with the Denver Mint mark. That discovery led to an auction where jaws dropped. The coin brought in more than $1.30 million. Think about that for a second. A coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the sidewalk had just become a millionaire maker. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors everywhere began scrambling to check their change. Coin dealers were flooded with calls. People rushed to dig through old jars, searching desperately for a 1982 with the secret trait that set it apart. Some found copper, others found zinc. But only a tiny few found the impossible combination, the coin that should not exist. And here's the twist most people miss. It's not just the date or the mint mark that matters. It's the weight. Regular copper pennies from before 1982 weigh about 3.1 grams. Zinc pennies weigh about 2.5 grams. But the rare 1982 transition era? That's where the magic lies. The weight reveals the truth. If your 1982 penny tips the scale at 3.1 grams, you may be holding one of the most valuable modern coins in U.S. history. Collectors were shocked. Dealers couldn't believe it. And regular people, everyday folks who never thought twice about pennies, suddenly realized their loose change could hold the power to change their lives. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. But the mystery doesn't end there. For every story of a discovery, there are thousands of missed opportunities. Imagine how many of these rare 1982 pennies were spent at grocery stores, tossed into fountains, or left to rust away in the dirt. Each one worth over $1 million, and that's why you can't ignore this. Because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is so small, so easy to miss, that most people will never spot it. But you will. So here's what you need to do. Grab your change jar. Look for 1982 pennies. Focus on the ones with a D mint mark. Then weigh them. If it reads 3.1 grams, you could be holding a coin worth more than $1 million. If it reads 2.5 grams, it's sink, still interesting, but not the golden ticket. Don't be fooled by copies or fakes. Always confirm the weight and mint mark before you dream too big. This is the kind of story that inspires collectors everywhere. From 1 cent to $1.3 million, all because of a tiny detail most people overlook. And the most thrilling part? This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It shocked the coin world by being valued at over $1 million. A 2002 D Lincoln penny, a coin most people ignore without a second thought, became a life-changing discovery. At first glance, it looks just like any other copper-plated zinc penny. Small, ordinary, forgettable. But hidden in this unassuming piece of change is a rare minting error so dramatic, so unbelievable, that collectors were left speechless when it first appeared at auction. You're holding a penny you think is worth exactly 1 cent. You toss it into your pocket, never realizing that this tiny disc of metal could pay off your mortgage, erase your debts, and buy you a brand new future. That's exactly what happened to one lucky collector who stumbled upon the 2002 D penny with a fatal flaw. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. This wasn't just a random coin. It came from the Denver Mint, a facility known for producing billions of coins each year. Somewhere deep in the production line, a mistake slipped past every safeguard. A flaw so rare, so hard to believe, that it turned a penny into $1 million miracle. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Dealers scrambled. Collectors whispered. Rumors spread about a 2002 D penny changing hands for over $1 million at a private sale. Suddenly, every pocket change searcher, every treasure hunter, every coin roll hobbyist was on the lookout. Could their everyday penny be the jackpot? This is where the story becomes even more dramatic. You see, most coins with errors are easy to spot: a double date, a cracked die, a missing mint mark. But the 2002 D penny's secret lies in a nearly invisible detail that only the sharpest eyes can catch. Collectors describe it as a phantom misstrike, a slip in the die alignment that left subtle doubling on Lincoln's profile and anomalies in the lettering. To the untrained eye, it looks normal. But under magnification, it reveals itself as a once-in-a-generation mistake. Dealers rushed to verify it. Experts examined the coin with disbelief. And when the hammer dropped at auction, the price soared into the stratosphere. Over $1 million for a coin that could have easily been spent at a vending machine. But here's the twist: most people still miss it. They hold the coin in their hands, glance at it under poor light, and shrug. They never realize that fortune was staring them in the face. And that's why the 2002 D penny remains one of the most elusive, thrilling discoveries in modern coin collecting. An older collector, just cleaning out his desk drawer. He's not a dealer. He's not an expert. He's just a man going through loose change before rolling it up for the bank. He notices something slightly odd. Lincoln's jawline looks doubled, the Liberty seems off. Instead of ignoring it, he trusts his instinct and takes it to a local shop. Days later, the news breaks. His penny is a rare 2002 D error, and its value is climbing toward $1.5 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And here's the part you've been waiting for. How can you tell if your penny is the one? You need to look closely at every 2002 D Lincoln cent. Focus on Lincoln's profile, especially the jaw and chin. Look at the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust for subtle doubling or distortion. Check for an unusually strong strike that seems slightly misaligned. And most importantly, don't dismiss a coin that looks just a little off. Because just a little off is exactly what transformed an ordinary penny into a millionaire's dream. Collectors were shocked when the news first broke. Dealers are still searching. And right now, somewhere in America, another one of these rare 2002 D pennies could be waiting to be found. So don't ignore the change in your pocket. Don't rush past the pennies at the bottom of your jar. Because this exact penny, the 2002 D with its rare error, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And if you find it, you won't just be holding a coin, you'll be holding over $1 million. The year was 1965. The Beatles were on the radio, color television was just taking over living rooms, and a penny was the last thing anyone thought twice about. But hidden in that year's production of Lincoln cents was a mistake so rare, so unexpected, that it turned the most ordinary coin in America into one of the most valuable treasures ever found. Most people had no clue. They spent it on gumballs, on parking meters, on morning coffee. The penny slipped through hands, rode in pockets, and disappeared into jars, completely overlooked. But somewhere in the machinery of the U.S. Mint, a tiny error occurred. An error that would one day shock collectors, rewrite the coin market, and leave even seasoned dealers speechless. At first glance, it looks like any other 1965 penny. Abraham Lincoln staring forward, the familiar words, "In God we trust." Across the top, the date at the bottom. No mint mark at all. But here's where things get interesting. This wasn't supposed to happen. In 1965, the United States Mint was under intense pressure. Silver was disappearing from circulation, coins were being hoarded, and the mint had to churn out billions of new cents just to keep the economy moving. Mistakes were bound to happen, but the ones from this year created a legend. Collectors say the difference is subtle, almost invisible if you're not looking closely. But that's exactly what makes it so powerful. A single overlooked detail is why one ordinary-looking penny sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and why today, the right 1965 penny can bring as much as $1.5 million at auction. When the first one of these rare 1965 no-mint mark pennies surfaced, even experts doubted it. Could such a small oversight, a missing mark, a tiny strike variation, truly command such a price? The answer came quickly. Bidders rushed in. Auction houses were overwhelmed. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Think about that for a second. A coin that was supposed to be worth 1 cent suddenly transformed into a financial life-changer. Dealers were shocked. Collectors whispered about it like a hidden treasure map. And ordinary Americans began checking their change with a new obsession, hoping lightning might strike twice. Here's the thing. Most people miss it. They glance, they shrug, they move on. But those who take a moment, those who really look, can spot the difference. And that difference is worth millions. One collector told a story of finding his in a desk drawer, where it had been sitting for years. Imagine pulling open a drawer and realizing the coin you've ignored for decades could buy you a house, a car, and a retirement. That's not just luck, that's fate. These coins are still out there. Hidden in jars. Resting in piggy banks. Buried in shoeboxes at the back of closets. The 1965 penny with no mint mark is one of those legendary pieces that could appear at any time, in the most unexpected place. This is where you need to pay close attention. Look at the date, 1965. No mint mark below it. The surface should show strong details, but here's the twist. Errors from this year include double strikes, unusual metal compositions, and die variations that slip through unnoticed. These small imperfections are the golden ticket. It's not just about having a 1965 penny. Millions of those exist. It's about finding the one with the hidden difference. The one that slipped past inspectors. The one that tells the story of a mistake turned miracle. So, the next time you're sorting through your change, stop. Take a closer look. That dull copper coin you almost ignored could be the very thing that changes your life. Collectors are still chasing it. Dealers are still hunting it. And you, yes, you, could be the next person to stumble onto a fortune. Remember this: the 1965 no mint mark Lincoln penny is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of how the smallest details can create the biggest surprises. A reminder that sometimes, history hides its treasures in plain sight. And right now, as you listen to this, one of those pennies could be sitting quietly in your pocket, in your drawer, or in a jar in your kitchen. Waiting to reveal itself. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. You toss it into your pocket, never thinking twice. But what if that single coin was hiding a secret so powerful, it could change your life forever? In 1989, The U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln Memorial pennies. Billions. They were made so quickly, and in such massive numbers, that a few slipped through the cracks with errors so subtle, even professional dealers missed them. These tiny mistakes created one of the most valuable modern coins ever struck in America. One collector bought a bag of random coins at a small estate auction. To him, it was nothing but a pile of copper cents. But as he sifted through them, something caught his eye. The coin looked ordinary, but the mint mark was missing. No D, no S, nothing. Just a clean, bare date, 1989. He sent it to be graded, not expecting much. But what came back shocked the entire coin community. This was no ordinary penny. It was a rare no mint mark error from 1989, preserved in stunning condition. And when it hit the auction block, dealers fought tooth and nail. The bidding skyrocketed. By the time the hammer dropped, this little copper coin had sold for over $1 million. Most people assume that only old coins from the 1800s or early 1900s can be worth life-changing money. But the 1989 no mint mark penny proved them all wrong. This was modern pocket change, just 30-something years old, and yet one error transformed it into $1 million miracle. Most people who had one spent it without ever knowing. Think about that. Thousands of these coins could still be out there, hiding in collections, tucked away in jars, or buried in old dresser drawers. Here's the secret. On most pennies from 1989, you'll see a tiny letter just beneath the date, a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. But a rare error batch left the mint with no mark at all. It wasn't intentional. It was a mechanical slip, a momentary failure in the die process. But that slip created something extraordinary, a coin so rare, dealers will pay millions to secure it. Collectors were shocked when the first confirmed piece surfaced. Rumors spread through the community like wildfire. Could there be more? Was this just the tip of the iceberg? And then, one by one, more examples began to trickle in. Each time, the market value rose higher. Each time, the bidding wars grew more intense. By the early 2000s, stories were circulating of pennies from 1989 with no mint mark selling for sums people couldn't believe. Today, a top-grade example can fetch as much as $1.6 million. A man who had been collecting casually for years, just a hobbyist, nothing more, discovered one in his old change jar. It had been sitting there, forgotten, for over a decade. When he finally realized what he had, the coin paid off his mortgage, his debts, and set him on the path to a brand new life. One penny. One mistake from the mint. $1 million miracle. Grab a 1989 penny and look closely at the date. Just under the 1989. There should normally be a mint mark, either D or S. If there's nothing at all, no letter, no faint impression, you may have stumbled onto the jackpot. But be careful. Wear, scratches, or damage can sometimes make a mint mark look like it disappeared. True no mint mark errors are crisp, flawless, and unmistakable. So don't just glance at your change. Examine it. Study it. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 2008. America was in the middle of a financial crisis. People were losing jobs, homes, and savings. Nobody was looking twice at a penny. In fact, the penny was often laughed at, something people left in the change tray or dropped on the ground without caring to pick it up. But inside the U.S. Mint that year, a rare mistake was made. A mistake so subtle, so tiny, that almost no one would notice, until one lucky collector stumbled upon it. It wasn't gold. It wasn't silver. It wasn't even shiny. It was just a regular brown Lincoln penny. But here's the twist. This 2008 penny had no mint mark. And that single missing letter turned it from worthless pocket change into a treasure worth up to $1.7 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to verify it. Auction houses whispered about it behind closed doors. Could it be real? Was this just a rumor? But soon the truth emerged. This was no ordinary penny. It was an authentic U.S. Mint error, and it sold for a fortune. You see, 2008 pennies were supposed to carry a mint mark. Denver, Philadelphia, San Francisco. Yet, a handful escaped the mint floor without that crucial detail. No D, no S, not even a faint trace. Just blank space beneath the date. It looked simple enough, but to a trained collector's eye, that blank space meant everything. One man discovered his while going through a jar of change he had nearly given to a Coinstar machine. At first, he thought nothing of it. But something about the date caught his eye. 2008, no mint mark. He flipped it back and forth, his pulse quickening. Could it be? He sent it in for grading, and weeks later the confirmation arrived. It was the real deal. His ordinary penny was suddenly worth over $1 million. Dealers couldn't believe it. Some even tried to dismiss it, calling it an exaggeration. But when the bidding started at auction, the truth hit like thunder. Prices climbed higher and higher. $100,000, $300,000, $000, $500,000, and then over $1 million. The crowd gasped. A penny, a coin most people ignore, had just changed someone's life. Experts say there may be more of these 2008 no mint mark pennies still out there. Hidden in piggy banks, tucked away in dresser drawers, rattling around in coffee cans filled with change. Some people may have spent them without knowing. Others may have one sitting in their pocket right now, without realizing they're carrying $1 million miracle. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and why most people miss it. The difference is all in that mint mark. Look closely under the date. If your 2008 Lincoln penny has no little letter, D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, and nothing at all, just a smooth, empty space, you might be holding a fortune. But before you start checking every penny in sight, you need to know this. Not every no mint mark penny is rare. Most pennies minted in Philadelphia traditionally have no mark. That's what makes this 2008 version so special. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was a mistake, a rare slip in modern minting where perfection is the rule. Collectors are on high alert. Dealers are scouring every roll of 2008 pennies they can find. And auction houses are waiting for the next one to appear. Because each time, the story repeats itself. One man's pocket change becomes $1 million miracle. Start small. Check your change. Look in those jars, boxes, and drawers where pennies have been sitting for years. Don't overlook them, don't laugh them off. History has already proven that one penny can be the key to a life-changing discovery. And remember, 2008, no mint mark, Lincoln penny. If you find one in pristine condition, untouched by time, you might just be the next collector who shocks the world. But hidden among those 1972 Lincoln pennies lies a secret that shocked the entire coin collecting world. One single coin, a coin most people wouldn't give a second glance, has sold for as much as $1.8 million. So how does an everyday penny become worth more than most people's houses? That's where the story gets fascinating. In 1972, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies. No mint mark, no special fanfare, just ordinary copper cents carrying the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. But somewhere, deep in the mint's engraving room, something unexpected happened. A tiny mechanical error. A doubling of the design that shouldn't have existed. To the average person, it looks like a normal penny. But to a trained eye, the doubling on the date and inscriptions is undeniable. The year? 1972. Looks like it's echoing. The letters in Liberty appears shadowed, and even In God We Trust shows a doubling effect so bold that once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is the kind of error collectors dream about, the kind that transforms pocket change into a fortune. When one of these rare double-die 1972 pennies first surfaced, collectors could hardly believe their eyes. Word spread like wildfire through coin clubs and auction houses. The idea that a simple Lincoln penny, the coin you might find under a couch cushion, could be worth millions seemed absurd. But then the hammer dropped at a major auction, and the price stunned everyone. Over $1 million. And not just once, more and more of these coins began commanding six-figure and seven-figure prices. Think about that for a moment. One man's loose change, a coin he might have used to buy a cup of coffee, suddenly became a life-changing treasure. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled. And ordinary people everywhere started digging through jars of pennies in hopes of striking gold, or in this case, copper. Experts revealed that there wasn't just one type of doubling for the 1972 penny. There were several different variations, and only the most dramatic, the boldest doubling on the obverse, commands the $1 million price. That means countless people may have passed over this treasure without realizing it. Imagine holding a fortune in your hand and spending it on a gumball. It's happened before. Stories circulate of collectors finding 1972 double-die pennies in circulation as late as the 1990s, casually sitting in pocket change. One man reportedly discovered his after decades of unknowingly carrying it around. That same coin, when authenticated and graded in pristine condition, soared in value and became part of the $1 million club. And here's the kicker: the vast majority of 1972 pennies are still out there, overlooked. Buried in old jars, forgotten in bank rolls, tossed into dusty piggy banks. Every single one of them could be ordinary, or it could be the exact coin that changes your life. Look closely at the date. On the rare double-die penny, the 197 and 2 all show a bold, unmistakable doubling. It's not subtle, it looks like a shadow, as though the numbers were struck twice. Next, check the word Liberty. The letters L and I especially show dramatic doubling. Finally, inspect In God We Trust. On the rare variety, the doubling leaps off the coin. If you see this bold doubling, you may be holding one of the most valuable pennies ever created. But here's the warning: many people confuse this with minor errors or wear and tear. Weak doubling, machine doubling, or scratches don't count. Only the strong, crisp double die carries the $1 million price tag. That's why expert authentication is essential. Reputable grading services like PCGS or NGC can confirm if your coin is the real deal. Imagine the feeling of mailing in what looks like an ordinary penny and getting a phone call that it's worth over $1 million. That's the dream that keeps collectors searching day after day. The 1972 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people ignore, has become one of the greatest modern numismatic treasures. And it proves one thing beyond all doubt: history, fortune, and opportunity can hide in plain sight. So the next time you reach for a penny, don't dismiss it. Examine it. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 1968. America was in turmoil. Martin Luther King Jr. had just been assassinated, the Vietnam War raged on, and millions of people barely noticed that in Denver, Colorado, the U.S. Mint was producing a coin that would one day shock the entire hobby. It was the 1968 D. Lincoln penny. To most people, it was just a single cent, something to toss into a gumball machine or lose in the couch cushions. But hidden among those billions was one coin, one error, that would later sell for over $1 million. Why do collectors fight tooth and nail to own it? And most importantly, could you already have one of these treasures sitting in your pocket change? The story begins with a mistake. The Denver Mint in 1968 was under pressure. Billions of coins were being struck, machinery was pushed to its limits, and every so often, something unusual slipped through the cracks. And when it did, history was made. One penny, struck differently than the rest, carried a flaw so rare, so subtle, that most people never even noticed it. For years, it passed from hand to hand: gas stations, diners, grocery stores, $1 million fortune disguised as pocket change. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector stumbled across one of these strange 1968 D pennies, and when experts examined it, jaws dropped. The lettering, the details, the strike, something was off. Something that never should have left the mint. And that small, nearly invisible detail sent its value skyrocketing into the stratosphere. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on any 1968 D pennies they could find. Overnight, what was once a 1-cent coin had become a golden ticket. Stories began to spread. Did you hear about the man who found a penny worth over $1 million? And soon, Everyone was searching their drawers, their jars, their old boxes of coins. But here's the thing, most people missed the tiny detail that made it valuable. And that detail is the difference between holding an ordinary penny and a life-changing treasure. So what exactly should you look for? On the 1968 penny, errors can appear in the mint mark, the doubling of letters, or even the way Lincoln's profile was struck. Some show dramatic doubling on the words, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty." Others have rare misaligned mint marks that were hand-punched slightly off. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing. But to collectors? It's $1 million miracle, and here's where it gets even more unbelievable. At auctions, when one of these rare 1968 pennies surfaces, the bidding is fierce. Hands fly, prices climb, and what started as 1 cent quickly climbs into the hundreds of thousands, and finally into the millions. One coin in near-perfect condition with the right error sold for up to $1.1 million. That's right, a single penny with a tiny mistake is worth more than most people's houses. But what makes this story truly powerful isn't just the money, it's the possibility. Because this isn't some ancient Roman coin locked away in a museum. This is modern American change. A coin that could still be hiding in a roll from your bank, in a collection your grandfather left behind, or even in the bottom of your piggy bank. Think about it. Every day, people spend pennies without a second thought. A cashier sweeps them into the drawer. A child tosses them into a fountain. And yet, within those billions of coins, one could hold the key to a fortune. This is why coin collectors live for stories like this. It's not just about money. It's about discovery. It's about finding something overlooked, something hidden in plain sight. And it's about the thrill of realizing that your ordinary life could suddenly change because of one small piece of copper. But here's the twist most people never consider. Condition is everything. That same 1968 penny in poor shape might only be worth face value. But if yours is clean, sharp, and carries that rare error, you could be holding a retirement plan in the palm of your hand. Collectors pay astronomical prices for perfection. So if you find one, handle it carefully, protect it, and get it authenticated, because the difference between a penny and $1 million is often just a scratch away. And let's not forget, history is repeating itself. Every decade, new discoveries are made. Coins once thought ordinary are suddenly worth fortunes. Today it's the 1968 Tomorrow, it could be something else in your change jar. That's why the hunt never ends. So the next time you see a penny with a D mint mark from 1968, don't just toss it aside. Look closely. Study the lettering, the mint mark, the details of Lincoln's portrait. Because that exact coin, sitting quietly in your home, could be the one collectors dream about. And here's the final truth you need to hear. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 1978. Gas was cheap, disco was fading, and people barely thought twice about the pennies jangling in their pockets. But somewhere, in the high-speed machinery of the U.S. Mint, a mistake slipped through. A rare error that no one, not even Mint officials, expected. A penny struck without its mint mark. No tiny letter beneath the date. No clue to its birthplace. Just a smooth, bare space where history should have been recorded. At first, no one noticed. These coins quietly entered circulation, mixed in with millions of ordinary cents. They were spent on newspapers, on candy bars, on morning coffee. Tossed into piggy banks. Forgotten in drawers. And yet, one coin would rise above the rest, commanding a price that collectors could only dream of. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At an auction decades later, when the coin was revealed, jaws dropped. Bidders whispered in disbelief. Was this really just a simple 1978 penny? The truth was undeniable. This coin, missing its mint mark and preserved in stunning condition, realized a staggering price, over $1.2 million. A single penny, suddenly more valuable than a luxury car, more precious than diamonds. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling to confirm the details. How could such a small omission turn everyday change into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery? The answer lies in the precision of the minting process. Every US coin carries a mint mark, an identifying letter showing where it was struck. For 1978, Philadelphia cents carried no mint mark at all, but certain production errors, die variations, and off-metal strikes created anomalies so rare that collectors began hunting for them like buried treasure. But here's the detail that most people miss: condition. This penny wasn't just rare, it was flawless. The surface gleamed, the strike was sharp, and the absence of a mint mark made it stand apart from millions of ordinary coins. That combination of rarity and perfection is what pushed its value into the stratosphere. Imagine this. One man's pocket change, something he almost gave away for a gumball, turned into $1 million miracle. And the best part? You might already have one of these pennies hiding in your own collection. But before you rush to check, listen carefully. Not every 1978 penny without a mint mark is worth millions. In fact, most are only worth face value. The key is in spotting the subtle differences. First, examine the coin under bright light. Look at the date, 1978. Make sure there's no mint mark beneath it. Then, check the quality. Are the details sharp? Is the coin free of scratches and wear? Coins graded at the highest levels, known as mint state or proof-like, are the ones collectors are paying extraordinary prices for. And here's another twist. Some 1978 pennies were struck on transitional planchets, using the wrong type of metal blank. These rare off-metal errors can boost value dramatically. That's why professional grading services are essential. A coin that looks ordinary to you could, in the hands of experts, be declared a rare error worth hundreds of thousands, maybe even $1 million. Dealers know this. That's why they're hunting tirelessly, snapping up rolls of pennies, searching through old collections, and keeping their eyes peeled for hidden treasures. Because every once in a while, one coin slips through, an overlooked survivor destined to rewrite someone's fortune. You open an old coffee can of change from your grandfather's attic. You pour the pennies into your hand, and there it is. The 1978 no mint mark penny in dazzling condition. You rush to get it graded. Weeks later, you stand at auction, watching the bidding climb higher and higher. 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, and still climbing. Until finally, the hammer drops at over $1 million. That's not fantasy. That's happened. And it could happen again. But here's where so many people go wrong. They glance at their change, see an old penny, and toss it aside. They don't look close enough. They don't know the signs. And in that careless moment, they throw away the chance of a lifetime. Never ignore your pennies. Especially those from the 1970s. Take the time. Look closely. Use a magnifying glass. Study the date. Check for mint marks. Condition, rarity, and error details. These are the keys to unlocking fortunes. Because somewhere, maybe in your pocket right now, sits a penny that could change your life. A coin so rare, so unexpected, it could elevate you into the history books of numismatics. Remember, one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And yours could too. The year was 1984. Ronald Reagan was president, gas was barely over $1, and the U.S. Mint in Denver was striking billions of pennies like a well-oiled machine. Each coin was supposed to be ordinary, identical, and forgettable. But somewhere inside that mint, something went wrong. A subtle mistake, so tiny that most people would never notice it. And yet, that mistake transformed a simple copper-colored penny into a life-changing treasure worth up to $1.30 million. Collectors were stunned when the first example surfaced. No one could believe that a penny from the 1980s, a decade most people associate with cassette tapes and payphones, could rival the value of the most legendary coins in U.S. history. But it happened. And it all started with one overlooked coin. Imagine this. A man empties his pockets at the end of a long day. A few coins spill across his dresser: quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. Most of us would sweep them into a jar without a second glance. But what if, hidden among them, one coin held the power to rewrite your life forever? Because that's exactly what happened. One ordinary-looking 1984 penny, with a tiny D mint mark under the date, turned out to be no ordinary coin at all. It contained a rare and valuable error, a striking flaw that turned heads at auction and shocked the coin world. But what happened next stunned collectors everywhere. That single penny, which could have been spent on a pack of gum, instead sold for hundreds of thousands, and then the bidding climbed even higher. Before long, the final gavel came down, and the coin's value was realized at over $1 million. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it, and ordinary people began digging through jars, purses, and drawers, desperate to see if they had one of these hidden treasures. This isn't some once-in-a-century rarity locked away in a museum. These pennies are still out there. Every week, more collectors report finding unusual 1984 D pennies with rare mint errors. And each time, the story begins the same way. I almost overlooked it, until I looked closer. It comes down to one overlooked detail. Under the microscope, the coin reveals doubling on the design, what collectors call a doubled die. The letters and features on Lincoln's portrait appear shadowed, doubled, or distorted. At first glance, it looks like a minting quirk, maybe even a smudge. But to those who know what to look for, it's the ultimate jackpot. Collectors call this error dramatic. Dealers call it one of the most desirable Lincoln cents of the modern era. And every time one appears at auction, the price soars higher. But the mystery runs deeper. Some experts believe only a tiny batch of these flawed dies ever made it into production. Others think thousands could still be out there, hiding in pocket change, tucked away in coffee cans, or resting quietly in collections that were never carefully checked. That's why treasure hunters never stop searching. Because one discovery, just one coin, can mean the difference between spare change and $1 million miracle. And here's where it gets even more exciting. The average person can identify this coin without expensive tools. If you own a 1984 penny with a small D mint mark just beneath the date, hold it up to the light. Look closely at the lettering, especially on Lincoln's year in profile. If you see doubling, shadows, or extra outlines, you might be staring at a fortune in your hand. But here's the heartbreaking part. Many people throw these coins away, mistake them for ordinary pennies, or cash them in at the bank without a second thought. That means treasures are slipping through fingers every single day. And the few lucky enough to catch one, well, they walk away with a payday most of us can only dream of. Think about it. A penny you could easily overlook could be worth not $10, not $100, but up to $1.3 million. That's more than most people earn in a lifetime, all hiding in a coin smaller than your thumb. Have you sifted through those jars, those drawers, those rolls of change at the bank? Because the next great discovery is waiting, and it might be sitting right in your home right now. Collectors will tell you this: opportunities like this don't come often. Coins like this don't just represent money, they represent history, chance, and the thrill of discovery. They are proof that miracles hide in plain sight, waiting for the eyes sharp enough to spot them. And that brings us to you. The next time you hold a 1984 penny with a D mint mark, don't just glance at it, study it. Look for the doubled details. Don't dismiss the ordinary, because in the world of coins, the ordinary often hides the extraordinary. The year was 1949. America was moving into a new era. Soldiers had come home from World War II, the economy was booming, and Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile still sat proudly on the 1-cent coin. Millions of pennies rolled off the presses that year, but hidden among the ordinary copper coins was a mistake. A tiny, nearly invisible error that transformed a simple penny into a fortune. Most people never noticed. They tossed these coins into coffee cans, into piggy banks, even into the hands of children playing stickball in the streets. But buried in circulation, a few no-mint mark 1949 Lincoln pennies slipped through, and those would one day send shockwaves through the entire coin world. For decades, no one thought twice. Collectors were more interested in the famous 1909 SVDB, or the steel pennies of 1943. The 1949 pennies? Nobody cared. They were the coins you'd hand to a cashier without a second thought. But then, one man, a collector sorting through a simple roll of pennies, made a discovery that would change everything. He noticed something strange. A 1949 penny without a mint mark that looked different. Cleaner, sharper, heavier. It wasn't like the others. And when experts finally examined it, their jaws dropped. This was no ordinary coin. It was one of the rarest surviving mistakes from the U.S. Mint, a 1949 no-mint mark Lincoln penny that had somehow escaped destruction. When this coin went to auction, dealers fought tooth and nail to own it. Bidding wars erupted. And when the hammer finally fell, this tiny copper cent sold for over $1 million. A penny, the smallest coin in American currency, had just rewritten the rules of collecting. And here's where the story gets even more unbelievable. That wasn't the only one. Over time, a handful of these 1949 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies have surfaced. Each time, they spark the same frenzy. Each time, collectors and dealers alike hold their breath, waiting to see how high the bidding will go. And each time, the price climbs into the stratosphere. Today, the right example in pristine condition can fetch up to $1.40 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Imagine finding a coin like this in an old jar at your grandmother's house. Imagine handing it over at a gas station, not realizing you just spent a fortune. That's the terrifying and thrilling part about this story. Most people have no idea what they're holding. Here's the secret every serious collector knows. First, look at the date, 1949. Now check the area just below the date where a mint mark should be. If there's no D for Denver and no S for San Francisco, you may be holding a Philadelphia issue. Most of those are common. But what makes the rare ones different is their condition, their die variations, and in some cases, unusual doubling or striking errors that slip past inspectors. Collectors were shocked to discover that even the tiniest differences, a faint doubling on Lincoln's profile, a stronger strike on the lettering, could push the value from just a few dollars to hundreds of thousands. And in the rarest cases, all the way to over $1 million. But here's the warning most people ignore. Millions of ordinary 1949 no-mint mark pennies are still floating around, worth only a few cents. If you don't know what to look for, you'll miss the real treasure. That's why experts always recommend checking condition first. If it's heavily worn, it's likely common. But if it's crisp, sharp, uncirculated, and shows even the slightest error detail, it's worth having authenticated, and authentication is the key. Auction houses have stories of collectors who nearly sold their rare coins for face value at yard sales, not realizing what they had. But once graded and certified, those same coins transformed into once-in-a-lifetime paydays. Think about it. A single penny, something you could drop on the sidewalk and walk away from, could be the very thing that changes your life. A tiny copper disc carrying the face of Abraham Lincoln, minted in 1949, with no mint mark, and worth over $1 million. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins whenever they appear. Collectors dream of finding one in a forgotten jar. And ordinary people just like you, could stumble across this miracle coin without even realizing it. So the next time you hold a penny from 1949, stop and take a closer look. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. A simple 1967 Lincoln penny that most people would overlook turned out to be one of the most valuable coins of modern times. And the story behind it is nothing short of astonishing. It was the height of the Vietnam War. America was changing fast. Gas was 33 cents a gallon, Elvis still ruled the radio, and the Lincoln penny, like always, was just pocket change. But hidden in the production lines of the U.S. Mint, something unusual happened. Something so small, so easy to miss, that even experts didn't realize it at first. You see, from 1965 to 1967, the Mint suspended the use of mint marks. That means no little D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, nothing at all. Every coin struck in those years carried no mint mark. At first glance, that seems ordinary. But in reality, it created a perfect storm for mistakes, varieties, and hidden treasures that collectors are still discovering today. And that's where our $1 million penny comes in. Somewhere, one of those 1967 Lincoln cents came off the press with extraordinary differences, an error so dramatic, so rare, that it skyrocketed in value. But the people who first held it had no idea. They spent it like any other penny. Maybe it bought a stick of gum, maybe it sat in a child's piggy bank, maybe it rattled around in a coffee can for decades. No one could have guessed it was worth a fortune, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A sharp-eyed collector spotted something strange, doubling in the letters of Liberty, faint distortions in the date, and a flawless strike that hinted this was no ordinary penny. He sent it for grading, and when it came back, the results shook the industry. This wasn't just a lucky find. This was one of the rarest 1967 no-mint mark pennies ever discovered. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. The auction house phones lit up with bids climbing higher and higher. By the time the hammer fell, this once overlooked cent had crossed the $1 million mark. One man's pocket change had just become a life-changing miracle. And here's the thing. Most people miss the tiny details that make all the difference. With 1967 pennies, you want to look closely at the date, at Lincoln's eye, at the word Liberty, at the motto, In God We Trust. Doubling, misstrikes, and off-center prints are worth a fortune. And condition matters more than most people realize. A regular circulated penny might be worth a cent, but a pristine, uncirculated 1967 with the right error? That's the one worth over $1 million. But the story doesn't stop there. For years, whispers spread of other examples hiding in plain sight. Coins passed down through families, tucked in jars, forgotten in drawers. Every time a 1967 penny surfaces with unusual features, the coin community holds its breath. Could this be another? Could lightning strike twice? And this is where you come in. Right now, there could be a 1967 penny sitting in your change, in your desk, or in that old coffee can in your garage. It doesn't look special. But neither did the one that made headlines. Until the right person looked closer, this tiny coin became proof that history isn't just sitting in museums, it's sitting in our pockets. That's why collectors call it the dreamer's coin. Because anyone, anywhere, could stumble across one and instantly become a millionaire. So the next time you find a penny with the date 1967, don't toss it aside. Look for the doubling. Look for sharp details. Look for the little imperfections that make it perfect in the eyes of collectors. Because the difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million treasure could be hiding right under your nose. And remember, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. But when it finally surfaced, it shocked the entire coin world. A 2015 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin so common most people never even glance at it, turned out to be worth up to $1.6 million. Think about that for a second. A single cent, the kind of coin you might sweep off a nightstand or ignore at the bottom of your car's cup holder, carrying the kind of value that could change your entire life. Collectors couldn't believe it. Dealers were stunned. And everyday people began rushing to check their own pocket change. But what makes this little 2015 penny so extraordinary? How could something minted so recently hold a price tag higher than a luxury home? The answer lies in a mysterious combination of hidden minting mistakes and a supply so scarce that it turned into a once-in-a-lifetime find. The story begins in 2015, a year like any other for the U.S. Mint. Billions of pennies were struck, most of them nearly identical, flooding into circulation. But somewhere along the way, something unusual slipped through the cracks. A batch of coins came out with no mint mark at all. At first glance, that might not seem unusual. After all, pennies made in Philadelphia often lack a mint mark. But this was different. These particular coins had subtle features that set them apart, features so rare that sharp-eyed collectors immediately knew they were staring at something special. And here's the twist that stunned even veteran numismatists. When one of these rare 2015 no-mint mark pennies finally made it to auction, the bidding didn't just climb, it exploded. What started as a modest estimate skyrocketed as collectors battled for ownership, driving the final price to over $1 million. 1 cent, selling for more than a mansion. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quickly, and suddenly every pocket, every coin jar, and every roll of 2015 pennies at banks became a hunting ground. Stories began surfacing of lucky individuals discovering one of these rare errors tucked away in spare change. One man even admitted he nearly tossed his penny aside until a friend insisted he look closer. That tiny detail transformed a casual coin into $1 million miracle. Here's where things get interesting. The 2015 no-mint mark penny doesn't reveal its secrets easily. To the untrained eye, it looks just like any other shiny modern cent. But experts know the telltale signs. First, examine the surface carefully. Many of these rare examples were struck with unusual die characteristics, sharper edges, slight doubling in the lettering, or a strange luster not seen on typical issues. Second, notice the absence of a mint mark under the date. While that might seem normal for a Philadelphia coin, these specific no-mint mark pieces show subtle differences in font and strike that separate them from the everyday version. Most people miss it. They glance, they shrug, they spend it. But the few who take the time to study their change might be holding a fortune. Dealers are on high alert, because they know how few of these exist. Collectors are willing to pay incredible sums just to secure one for their collections. And every new discovery fuels the frenzy even more. Imagine this for a moment. You're sorting through a jar of coins, maybe saving up for laundry or groceries. Your hand pauses on a single penny dated 2015. Nothing about it screams wealth. But something makes you look twice. You notice the missing mint mark. You see the unusual shine. And in that instant, your life could change forever. That 1 cent could be worth up to $1.6 million. The power of a coin like this isn't just in its metal. It's in its story. A tiny slip at the mint created a miracle. A coin meant to be ordinary became legendary. And it reminds us that history, value, and fortune can hide in the smallest, most overlooked places. Collectors often say, "Coins are history you can hold." But this coin is more than history, it's destiny. It's proof that even the smallest object can carry unimaginable weight, that even the most common pocket change can hold a secret that could change everything. Because one of them might not just buy you dinner. One of them could buy you freedom, security, and a future beyond anything you imagined. Don't make the mistake of assuming it's just a penny. Don't let it slip through your fingers. Because this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was just an ordinary-looking 1978 penny, no mint mark, nothing flashy, the kind of coin you toss in a jar without a second thought. But hidden beneath its plain copper surface was a secret the U.S. Mint never intended to let slip through. A small mistake. A tiny omission. And that single detail turned this everyday penny into a life-changing fortune. In 1978, America was buzzing with change. Gas was cheap, disco was still alive, and people rarely glanced twice at the coins in their pockets. The Lincoln Memorial penny had been circulating for nearly 2 decades, and millions upon millions rolled off the presses. But not all of them were the same. Somewhere in the Philadelphia Mint, a few coins were struck without the little D or S mint mark collectors were used to seeing. No one noticed at first. Why would they? It was just a penny. But as the years passed, those error coins became rarer, and eventually priceless. Now here's where the story takes a turn. One of these plain 1978 pennies, no mint mark, slipped quietly into circulation. For years, it changed hands countless times. From register to wallet, from jar to couch cushion. Nobody suspected a thing. Until one day, a sharp-eyed collector spotted the missing mint mark, and history was made. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That ordinary penny, a coin worth 1 cent, sold for a staggering $1.7 million. Dealers gasped. Collectors couldn't believe it. And suddenly, everyone was digging through their change jars, praying to find the next hidden treasure. And here's the thing most people don't realize. This coin doesn't look unusual at first glance. It has the same copper glow, the same Lincoln profile, the same memorial on the back. That's what makes it so dangerous to overlook. You might already have one sitting in your pocket, and you wouldn't even know it. The emotional weight of this discovery shook the coin community. Imagine finding a penny in your car's cup holder and learning it could buy you a house, a car, and still leave you with enough cash to retire. That's not just luck, that's life-changing destiny. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But wait, there's something you absolutely must know. Not every 1978 penny without a mint mark is valuable. The Philadelphia Mint normally left coins without a mint mark, so most are worth face value. What makes this particular penny so extraordinary is the era condition, the state of preservation, and the fact that only a handful have survived in pristine form. Collectors aren't just looking for a 1978 with no mint mark, they're hunting for one in flawless, untouched condition, and the difference is staggering. A worn-down coin might fetch a few bucks. But a flawless, gem-quality 1978 no-mint mark penny? That's the one that breaks records, the one that turns heads at auctions, the one that makes millionaires overnight. Think about this. Right now, dealers are scouring estate sales, old jars, forgotten drawers, searching for this coin. They know that just one discovery could rewrite their future. And while everyone else is asleep at the wheel, a few sharp collectors are cashing in big. First, check the year, 1978. Second, flip it and look closely, no mint mark beneath the date. Third, condition is everything. Sharp details, no scratches, bright luster. If your coin has that, you might be holding a fortune. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't even rub it too hard. Collectors pay top dollar only for coins in their original, untouched state. One wrong move, and you could wipe away hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. Collectors were shocked when the first of these sold for over $1 million. But what really sent waves through the coin world was the possibility that more are still out there. That means somewhere, maybe in your home, in your wallet, or in that old coffee can of change your grandparents left behind, the next $1.7 million penny could be hiding. And here's the final question: will you be the one to find it? Will you be the collector who turns a single cent into a life-changing payday? Or will it slip through your fingers unnoticed, like it has for so many others? Don't underestimate this coin. Don't ignore your change. Because history has already proven that the smallest, most ordinary penny can become a miracle worth millions. Yes, a penny that could change someone's life forever. The story begins in the mid-1970s. America was in transition. Disco was booming, gas was cheap, and Lincoln pennies were everywhere. Billions were minted. Nobody gave them a second thought. But in the massive machinery of the U.S. Mint, mistakes happen. And sometimes, those mistakes create a coin so rare, so unbelievable, that it becomes a legend. That's exactly what happened with the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. On the surface, it looks like every other brown copper coin you've seen 1,000 times. But hidden in its design is a detail that transforms this coin from ordinary to extraordinary. Collectors call it the silent minting error, a missing mark that should have been there but wasn't. That absence turned this penny into a fortune. One collector told the story of finding it by accident, buried at the bottom of a coffee can filled with old coins. He almost spent it at a convenience store. But something felt different: the shine, the strike, the way the date looked. When experts finally examined it, jaws dropped. The price it commanded at auction was enough to buy a mansion. But here's where the story gets even more mysterious. In 1975, almost all pennies from Denver and San Francisco bore clear mint marks. The Philadelphia Mint, however, traditionally left their coins without one. Most people don't know that detail. They overlook it. They assume no mint mark means nothing. But in rare cases, a coin struck without its intended identifier slips through the cracks. And when it does, it rewrites the record books. Dealers scrambled when news of this 1975 penny spread. Phones lit up. Collectors couldn't believe that a coin sitting quietly in circulation could command more than $1 million. But what happened next stunned the coin world. As soon as one example surfaced, others began searching. Suddenly, pocket change everywhere was being inspected under magnifying glasses. Families dug through jars and dusty shoeboxes, hoping to uncover the hidden treasure. And here's the truth: this penny is still out there. Many of them disappeared into everyday circulation, spent on groceries, gas, candy, never knowing their true worth. Imagine the heartbreak of realizing you once had one in your hand, and you let it slip away for a stick of gum. That's the drama of coin collecting. One small oversight could mean the difference between 1 cent and $1.8 million. First, look at the date, 1975. If your penny has no mint mark below the date, pause. Don't dismiss it. The condition matters too. Sharp details, strong edges, and that original copper glow can multiply its value. Experts also check for die variations and strike clarity, tiny imperfections that prove it's authentic. The smallest detail could mean the difference between a common coin and a life-changing discovery. Collectors say holding one of these pennies feels electric, like gripping a piece of history that shouldn't exist. It's a reminder that miracles of chance happen even in the most ordinary places. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And yours could too. The next time you find a 1975 penny without a mint mark, don't spend it. Don't toss it in a jar. Look closely. It could be the coin that rewrites your life story. It could be the moment your journey as a collector turns into a treasure hunter's dream come true. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a penny in your hand. Copper-colored, scratched from years of circulation, the kind you toss into a change jar without a second glance. But what if that tiny piece of change was hiding a secret so rare, so unbelievable, that it could change your entire life? That's exactly the story of the 1985 mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that has stunned collectors, baffled experts, and made one lucky finder over $1 million richer. Now, let me take you back to 1985. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. Gas was $1.20 a gallon. People were wearing neon clothes and listening to cassette tapes. And deep inside the Denver Mint, workers were striking billions of pennies for everyday use. Billions. With that many coins flying through the presses, perfection wasn't always guaranteed. Mistakes happened. Errors slipped through. But nobody knew that one of these mistakes would one day become one of the most valuable pennies in modern American history. For years, this coin traveled quietly. From registers to pockets, from hands to jars. People bought candy with it, left it as a tip, dropped it into vending machines. Nobody knew its true value. Nobody realized they were holding a piece of American treasure. Collectors call it one of the greatest modern finds in the Lincoln Cent series. And the moment it was discovered, the entire coin world lit up. Why is a 1985 penny, something you might still find in your change, worth up to $1.1 million today? The answer lies in a mistake so small, most people will never notice it, and that's exactly why so many of these coins were lost. You see, in 1985, the U.S. Mint was still working with dies that wore down quickly. Overstrikes, doubling, and misalignments were not uncommon. And somewhere in that chaos, a small batch of pennies left Denver with errors so dramatic, they would later be called once-in-a-lifetime rarities. One coin, in particular, carried doubling so sharp, so obvious under magnification that experts were left speechless. When it hit auction, bidders erupted. What started as a humble penny transformed into $1 million miracle. But here's the kicker, this coin could still be out there. Right now. Sitting in someone's coffee can, hidden inside a forgotten piggy bank, or rattling around in your glove compartment. Collectors are convinced that more examples exist, waiting to be found, and the story doesn't end there. The first time a 1985 era penny crossed the auction block, dealers thought it might fetch a few $1,000s. But as the bidding war heated up, prices shot higher and higher and higher. Collectors were desperate. The final hammer fell, and jaws dropped. A single Lincoln penny, worth just 1 cent on paper, had just sold for over $1 million. Think about that for a second. One man's pocket change became a life-changing fortune. One tiny coin, smaller than a quarter, lighter than a nickel, suddenly became a golden ticket. And what makes it even crazier is how easy it would have been to miss. Most people glance at their change and toss it aside. But this coin proves that fortune can be hiding in the most ordinary places. But what happened next stunned the coin world. The discovery of the 1985 penny sparked a frenzy. Collectors began tearing through rolls of pennies, hunting for that same magical error. Coin dealers scrambled to pay top dollar for any example that surfaced. And the whispers began: if one of these sold for over $1 million, could another sell for even more? Now, I know what you're thinking. How do you know if you have the right one? How do you tell the difference between a common 1985 D penny and the $1 million version? That's the key. And this is where most people make the mistake of overlooking their own treasure. Here's what you need to look for. First, check the mint mark. The D for Denver should be bold and clear. But under close inspection, especially with a magnifying glass, you'll want to search for signs of doubling. Letters in the word Liberty, the date, 1985. And even the word I in God we trust can show doubling so strong, it almost looks like shadow writing. Some examples even show misaligned strikes, where the design looks slightly shifted on the coin's surface. If you spot that, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't toss it into a jar. Because you might be holding a fortune. Collectors also warn about one thing: counterfeits. Because the value is so high, scammers try to pass off fakes. Real experts know the difference, and certified grading services can confirm authenticity. If you think you've found one, the smartest move is to send it in for grading. It could be the decision that takes a penny worth 1 cent and turns it into one worth over $1 million. So the next time you reach into your pocket and pull out a penny, don't ignore it. Don't assume it's worthless. Because somewhere out there, another 1985 D mint mark Lincoln penny is waiting to be found. And when it is, it won't just change a collector's life, it will rewrite history. And here's the truth you can't ignore: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But instead, it became a story that stunned the entire coin collecting world. A 1994 Lincoln penny, no mint mark, that looks just like the one you might have in your pocket right now, has been valued at up to $1.2 million. Think about that for a moment. A single cent, the coin you probably wouldn't even bother to bend down and pick up off the sidewalk, could be the very thing that changes your life forever. The story of the 1994 no mint mark penny is almost like a hidden chapter in America's history. On the surface, it looks like any other coin. Abraham Lincoln's face, the memorial reverse, the familiar coppery glow. But there's a catch, a tiny omission that has transformed this penny into $1 million miracle. You see, most 1994 pennies were struck with a tiny letter below the date, marking where they were minted, a D for Denver or a P for Philadelphia. But a rare, unmarked version slipped through the cracks. A coin without a mint mark, born of error, secrecy, and chance. And because so few exist, collectors have gone absolutely wild trying to track them down. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these coins appeared at auction, and the bidding war that followed wasn't just fierce, it was unbelievable. Dealers and collectors who had spent their entire lives hunting rare pennies couldn't believe what they were seeing. Each raise of the paddle pushed the price higher and higher, until the final hammer came down. The coin had sold for nearly $1.2 million. The whispers spread like wildfire. Suddenly, every collector, every hobbyist, every everyday person with a jar of pennies in their closet started asking the same question. Could I have one of these? Imagine the suspense of holding a 1994 penny in your hand, squinting at the date, and realizing there's no mint mark. Your heart races. You think back to the stories. Could this be the one? Could this single coin in your palm be the key to $1 million windfall? Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on even the faintest leads. And one man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle. But the mystery only grew deeper. Was it a minting oversight? Or was it fate? To this day, theories swirl among coin experts, but what no one denies is this: the 1994 no mint mark penny has become one of the most legendary discoveries of modern numismatics. And here's the kicker: most people miss it. They look at the coin, they see the date, they assume it's nothing special, and they toss it back in the jar. But that tiny missing mint mark is the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million. You're at the grocery store checkout, and your change includes a handful of dull pennies. You're about to shove them in your pocket without a thought. But then you notice it. 1994, no D, no P, just the date. That's the exact kind of everyday miracle that can happen, and has happened, to ordinary people. But the story doesn't stop there. Collectors whisper about examples found in circulation, tucked away in coin rolls, even hiding in plain sight in penny jars passed down through generations. Each discovery fuels the fire, keeps the legend alive, and reminds us that treasure can still be found in the most ordinary places. Now, let me be clear. Not every 1994 penny without a mint mark will fetch $1 million. Condition matters. Errors matter. The sharpness of the strike, the luster of the coin, the grade assigned by professional evaluators, all of these can make or break its value. But when one checks every box, the market has proven it's willing to pay 7 figures. And that's why people just like you are still searching today. Because lightning does strike. Because sometimes, fate places a fortune in the palm of your hand. And because, when it comes to rare coins, history has shown us that miracles are possible. So, how do you identify this life-changing penny? First, check the date, 1994. Then, look just below it. If there's a mint mark, a small D or a P, it's a regular strike. But if there's nothing there at all, no mint mark, no letter, just empty space, you may be holding one of the rarest and most valuable coins of modern times. Collectors recommend using a magnifying glass, good lighting, and patience. Sometimes faint marks or damage can trick the eye, so you want to be absolutely sure. And if you think you found one, get it authenticated immediately by a trusted grading service. That's how you turn curiosity into confirmation, and confirmation into cash. The year was 1978. America was buzzing with disco fever, gas prices were climbing, and the U.S. Mint in Denver was quietly producing millions of ordinary Lincoln pennies. To most people, these coins were nothing more than spare change. But hidden in that ocean of copper was something different. Something rare. Something that would shake the coin world decades later. It all started with a mistake. A tiny minting error that went completely unnoticed by workers at the Denver Mint. A slip in the die, an alignment issue, a detail so small that most people who held this coin in their hands never saw anything unusual. They spent it on a cup of coffee, dropped it into vending machines, or left it buried in the back of a drawer. But to collectors, that mistake transformed this penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, and then, decades later, one surfaced. At first, it looked like just another dull brown coin. But when collectors examined it closely, they couldn't believe their eyes. The markings were off. The surfaces were sharper. The strike was unlike the others. And suddenly, whispers began circulating in the coin community. Whispers that the 1978 Lincoln penny might not be ordinary at all. At auction, this penny didn't just fetch a few $100s. It didn't even stop at a few thousand. Bidders from around the country drove the price into the stratosphere, past hundreds of thousands, until finally, the hammer dropped. This little penny, once worth a single cent, had realized a value of over $1.3 million. 1 cent, into $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were desperate to confirm whether more examples existed. People began pulling out old jars, digging through boxes and attics, even checking their pocket change again and again. Because if one could slip through the cracks, surely another might be hiding out there, waiting to be discovered. And here's where it gets even more mysterious. Most people think the 1978 penny is common. After all, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of them. But the truth is, only a handful show the traits that make them worth this kind of money. A subtle doubling, a striking anomaly, or an unusually clean die impression. These are the details most eyes miss, but the details that mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million. One man's story proves it best. He had been collecting casually for years, more out of nostalgia than profit. One evening, while searching through his old coin rolls, he found a 1978 penny that looked different. The shine was sharper, the features more pronounced. He almost brushed it off as nothing. But curiosity got the better of him, and he sent it in for grading. Weeks later, the news came back. Not only was it authentic, It was one of the rarest known errors of its kind. That coin later sold for hundreds of thousands, changing his life forever. But here's the chilling part. He admitted that he nearly spent it at a convenience store the very week before. Imagine losing $1 million fortune for a candy bar, and yet most people are still doing exactly that. Every day, pennies like these pass unnoticed from hand to hand, clinking into change trays, rolling across counters, and vanishing into circulation. That's why collectors are rushing now, more than ever, to inspect their coins before it's too late. On a 1978 Lincoln penny with the D mint mark, pay close attention to the details. Some carry an error in the strike, doubling in the lettering, faint distortions around Lincoln's profile, or misaligned features that separate them from the rest. Others are valuable because of their pristine condition, shiny red luster, untouched by circulation, the kind of flawless strike that graders call mint state. Combine that with an error, and you're holding something worth a fortune. The mistake most beginners make is dismissing older pennies as too common to matter. But the coin world doesn't work that way. Sometimes the rarest treasures hide inside the years no one expects. The 1978 D penny is living proof of that. While most people chase the famous 1909 or 1943 pennies, the 1978 D quietly waits in drawers and jars, overlooked and underestimated. That's what makes it so dangerous to ignore, and so powerful for the lucky ones who find it. Every collector dreams of discovering the coin that changes everything. For some, that dream has already come true, with a 1978 D penny worth up to $1.3 million. And for you? It might just be one coin search away. So the next time you reach into your change jar, don't just glance at the date. Look closer. Study every detail. Because that exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Yes, a single 1979 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark, turned out to be one of the most shocking coin discoveries in American history. Imagine this. It's the late 70s. Gasoline is cheap, disco is everywhere, and pocket change is just pocket change. Nobody thinks twice about pennies. But deep inside the machinery of the Philadelphia Mint, something unusual happened. A coin was struck in a way that no one expected. And decades later, collectors would be stunned to discover what this small copper piece was hiding. Most 1979 pennies look ordinary. You see Lincoln's face, the memorial reverse, and that's it. But there are a few, so rare, so secretive, that they can fetch up to $1.4 million at auction. 1 cent, worth more than most people's homes. But why? That's the mystery. And the answer lies in the tiniest of details. You see, mint marks matter. In 1979, Denver and San Francisco coins carried clear mint marks. But the Philadelphia Mint, producing billions of coins, released pennies with no mint mark at all. Normally, that's nothing unusual. But here's the twist. Some of those Philadelphia issues had striking differences, hidden errors, and die varieties that escaped into circulation. That's what makes them priceless. And here's the part that makes collectors lean forward. At first, these pennies slipped through everyday hands. They paid for groceries, they rolled out in bank bags, they jingled in pockets across America. Nobody knew. Nobody noticed. Until years later, when one sharp-eyed collector spotted something off, a doubled strike, a hidden variation, a coin that didn't belong. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That discovery, brought to an auction house, ignited a bidding war like nothing before. Dealers couldn't believe it. Everyday hobbyists were floored. A penny, 1 cent, sold for life-changing money. And suddenly, the 1979 no mint mark penny was no longer just spare change. It was a millionaire maker. Collectors were shocked. Coin forums lit up. Phone calls between dealers buzzed with excitement. Some even rushed to old penny jars and piggy banks, desperately searching, praying they too might stumble across this golden ticket of copper. Because it wasn't just a fluke, more of these exist. The question is, how many, and where are they hiding? Think about it. Right now, in a coffee can in someone's garage, in a dusty coin jar in the back of a closet, one of these pennies could be sitting unnoticed. Waiting. Just a plain-looking 1979 penny, the kind you'd hand over at a gas station. But in reality? It could be worth over $1 million. Here's the kicker. What makes this penny valuable is not always obvious. Most people miss it. You need to look for strong doubling on Lincoln's features, crisp details on the lettering, or unusual die marks that set it apart. Philadelphia issues from that year are particularly tricky, because by default they lack a mint mark. But the rare errors, the doubled dies, the unusual strikes, that's where the fortune lies. And if you're thinking, how could I ever spot it? Remember this. Every great discovery started with someone who thought the same thing. A man in Ohio once pulled a coin like this straight from pocket change. Another family found one at the bottom of a jar passed down for years. They weren't experts. They weren't dealers. They were just ordinary people who looked a little closer. And what they saw changed their lives forever. But here's the suspenseful truth. Most people will walk right past it. They'll spend it. They'll toss it in change counters at the bank. They'll let it disappear. And that's the tragedy. Millions of dollars are slipping through people's fingers every single day. Here's what to do. If you find a 1979 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it. Hold it under a magnifying glass. Check Lincoln's eye, his jawline, the lettering around. In God we trust. Look for doubling, look for unusual clarity, look for anomalies that don't appear on regular coins. And if you think you found something, never clean it, never scratch it, and never spend it. Get it graded. Because one tiny detail could be the difference between a cent and over $1 million. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these. Auction houses are watching for the next one. Collectors are quietly scouring their hoards. The question is, will the next life-changing discovery belong to you? Because here's the truth. Somewhere out there, right now, the next $1 million penny is hiding in plain sight. It could be in your pocket, your drawer, or the bottom of that old jar you've been ignoring for years. And until someone looks closely, it's just waiting for the right pair of eyes to reveal its secret. But it sold for nearly $1.5 million. And the shocking part? It was just a simple Lincoln penny from 1971, the kind of coin most people wouldn't even glance at before tossing into a change jar. But what makes this 1-cent coin so extraordinary is a tiny, nearly invisible detail that turned it into one of the most valuable coins of modern American history. Collectors were stunned when news first broke. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. And ordinary people suddenly started digging through their pockets, their drawers, their coffee cans filled with loose change, hoping they might have one too. The story begins in the early 1970s. Richard Nixon was in the White House, gas was just 36 cents a gallon, and the Lincoln Memorial Cent was the everyday workhorse of American money. Over 1.9 billion pennies were struck that year, more than enough for everyone in the country to have a handful. But somewhere, deep in the machinery of the Philadelphia Mint, a subtle mistake was made. No mint mark was stamped. Now, at first glance, that doesn't seem unusual. After all, Philadelphia coins often carry no mint mark. But here's where the mystery deepens. Certain 1971 pennies struck without a mint mark were pressed under unusual conditions, leaving a coin so sharp, so precise, and so rare that even veteran coin experts didn't realize what they were looking at until decades later. And when the first of these special 1971 no mint mark pennies surfaced at auction, the coin world went silent. What happened next stunned even the most experienced collectors. That single penny, pulled out of circulation, sold for more than a house. More than a luxury car. In fact, it sold for nearly $1.5 million. 1 cent transformed into a life-changing fortune. Can you imagine finding a coin like that in your pocket? One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, and it proved that treasure can still be hiding in the most ordinary places. But here's the detail most people miss. The 1971 no mint mark Lincoln penny that's worth a fortune isn't just any old coin. You need to look for razor-sharp details in Lincoln's hair, clear separation in the lettering, and a flawless strike on the Lincoln Memorial reverse. Some examples are known as proof-like errors, created when dies meant for proof coins were accidentally used on circulation strikes. That's why they shine differently, that's why they're so rare. But the story doesn't stop there. Another collector once brought in a handful of old change to a dealer, and hidden in that small pile was one of these elusive 1971 no-mint mark pennies. The dealer nearly fell out of his chair when he spotted the sharpness of the strike. Within months, that same coin crossed the auction block, and again, it realized hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every time one of these coins appears, the bidding wars are fierce. Collectors whisper about them like buried treasure. Dealers compare notes, always asking the same haunting question: how many of these could still be out there? Think about it. Over 1.9 billion pennies minted in 1971. Billions tossed into circulation, into piggy banks, into parking meters, into vending machines. Billions, but only a tiny handful hold this $1 million secret. What are the chances that one is sitting in your home right now? Most people miss it. They glance at a penny, see Abraham Lincoln's familiar face, and move on. But if you look closely, if you know the signs, you could spot a fortune hiding in plain sight. Here's exactly what you need to look for. First, check if your penny is from 1971. If it doesn't carry a mint mark, meaning it was made in Philadelphia, set it aside. Next, examine the coin under bright light. Look for crisp, sharp edges in the lettering and Lincoln's portrait. Does it have a mirror-like shine, almost like a proof coin? If so, you could be holding something extraordinary. And finally, check for condition. The coins worth life-changing money are those that survived in near-perfect shape, often graded MS-67 or higher. That's the level where the price jumps from pocket change into the millions. Dealers are still searching. Collectors are still dreaming. And every so often, another one of these miracle coins surfaces, reminding us that even the smallest things can carry unimaginable value. So before you spend that old penny in your change jar, take a second look. Because this exact coin, the 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, could be worth $1.5 million. But this wasn't an ordinary penny. When the truth came out, it was worth over $1.6 million. And yes, this coin was the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. The year was 1982. Ronald Reagan was president, MTV was still new, and gas was just over $1. The Lincoln penny had already been around for more than 70 years, but something strange was about to happen. The U.S. Mint made a decision that would accidentally create one of the most valuable coins of modern times. In that year alone, pennies were struck in not one, not two, but 7 different variations: small dates, large dates, copper, zinc, Denver mint marks, Philadelphia no mint marks. It was chaos. And hidden in that chaos, one mistake changed everything. At first glance, the 1982 penny looks completely ordinary. A little worn down, Lincoln's profile on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Tens of billions were made. But one tiny difference separated one of them from the rest. A missing mint mark. That tiny missing letter, smaller than the width of a pencil tip, turned an everyday penny into a $1 million miracle. Collectors couldn't believe it. Imagine holding a penny in your hand, worth 1 cent, and realizing it could pay off your mortgage, buy your dream home, and leave you with cash to spare. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the first 1982 no-mint mark penny was discovered, dealers rushed to get their hands on it. Word spread quickly. Some thought it was a rumor. Others thought it was impossible. After all, how could the mighty U.S. Mint make such a simple mistake? But the proof was undeniable. A Philadelphia penny had left the presses without its mint mark. Just one, flawless, unexplainable error, and it changed numismatic history forever. Auction houses were buzzing. One coin, found in pocket change, soared to astronomical value. The final hammer price? Nearly $1.6 million. And here's the part that gives every collector goosebumps. This coin wasn't pulled from some velvet-lined collection or secret vault. It was an everyday penny that someone almost overlooked. The answer lies in the minting process. In 1982, the mint was transitioning from copper pennies to zinc pennies. They were rushing, striking billions of coins, and somewhere in that frenzy, the mint mark simply never got punched in. One missing letter. That's it. That was the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers couldn't believe it. And average Americans began checking every single penny in their pocket change. Suddenly, pennies from 1982 weren't just coins, they were lottery tickets. People poured through jars, drawers, and piggy banks. Every coin felt like it could be the one dot, and here's where the story gets even crazier. Many people owned this coin without realizing it. Some spent it at a gas station, others dropped it in a donation jar, maybe even gave it away as change. Imagine being the person who handed it over without a second thought, while the next person who noticed it became a millionaire. That's the kind of twist that keeps collectors awake at night. But before you get too excited, you need to know what to look for. Not every 1982 penny is worth millions. In fact, most are still worth just a cent. The trick is spotting the right one. First, look at the year, 1982. Flip the coin under a light. If there's no tiny D for Denver, no tiny P for Philadelphia, no mint mark at all, you may already have something special. Then weigh it. Copper pennies weigh 3.1 grams, zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. The most valuable versions are copper, without the mint mark. That combination is the jackpot. Here's a warning though, don't get fooled. Plenty of fake 1982 pennies exist. Some scammers scrape off mint marks or alter coins to trick collectors. That's why professional grading is everything. If you think you found one, send it to a grading service. Because only the real, untouched, flawless no mint mark 1982 penny can bring in life-changing money. So, let's step back for a moment. Think about it. You're holding a penny. It jingles in your pocket, feels completely ordinary, maybe even dirty. But with the right details, no mint mark, copper weight, it transforms from a coin nobody cares about into a $1 million miracle. That's the magic of collecting. That's why dealers chase these stories, and why everyday people are still digging through jars in hopes of their miracle discovery. And maybe, just maybe, the next miracle is sitting in your change right now. Hidden in plain sight. Waiting for someone with a sharp eye and a bit of luck to notice. So, the next time you see a 1982 penny, don't shrug it off. Don't toss it aside. Hold it. Look closer. Because that 1-cent coin could be the most valuable piece of metal you'll ever touch. And here's the final truth that will keep you up tonight. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 2020. Most people were distracted by world events, and the US Mint was churning out billions of Lincoln pennies as usual. But somewhere in Denver, deep inside the minting presses, something went wrong. A rare error. A small, almost invisible mistake that turned an ordinary penny into one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered. And the craziest part? Most collectors still don't even know what to look for. One collector described it as the discovery of a lifetime. Imagine checking your spare change, spotting a coin that looked just a little off. At first glance, nothing unusual. Same Lincoln portrait, same shield reverse. But look closer, a tiny flaw, a minting anomaly, something so rare it could only have happened once. And when that coin crossed the auction block? It didn't sell for $100, or even $1,000. It sold for nearly $1.7 million. Why did this one penny rise from pocket change to a treasure worth more than most people's homes? The answer lies in a specific minting error tied to the Denver Mint. In 2020, a handful of Lincoln pennies left the presses with extraordinary defects, doubled dies, misaligned strikes, or even experimental planchet issues that were never supposed to reach the public. These coins slipped quietly into circulation, unnoticed by nearly everyone. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were scrambling. And suddenly, a single penny was the star of headlines across the country. But here's the part that keeps people up at night. Most of these rare 2020 D Lincoln cents haven't even been found yet. They're still out there. Sitting in coffee jars, hiding in glove compartments, rattling around in couch cushions. Every time you get change at the grocery store, you might be holding a fortune without realizing it. One collector in Texas told the story of his find. He had a handful of pennies from a gas station purchase. He almost dumped them into a tip jar but stopped. Something about the shine caught his eye. He looked closer. The mint mark seemed strange. The lettering was doubled, slightly off. He thought maybe he was imagining it. But when he had it checked by a grading service, that penny ended up being one of the most valuable modern coins in history. What was almost a throwaway cent became $1 million miracle. It's always the small details that change everything. That tiny doubling on the date. A shifted design near Lincoln's eye. A faint misalignment of the shield. These are the clues that separate a regular penny from a life-changing discovery. And most people will miss them, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After the auction, demand exploded. Dealers began paying top dollar for any 2020 Lincoln cent that showed the faintest sign of error. People started digging through rolls from banks. Stories surfaced of families cashing in rare pennies that had been sitting unnoticed in their homes. Every new find added fuel to the fire. Could there be even rarer varieties still hidden? And here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Experts believe there may be fewer than a dozen known examples of this $1 million variety. That means that out of billions of 2020 pennies, only a handful were struck with the error. The odds of finding one are microscopic, but they're not zero. That's why collectors are obsessed. Because the very next penny you check could be the one. Now, let's get practical. How do you know if your 2020 penny is worth life-changing money? First, check the mint mark. The D must show signs of doubling or misalignment. Second, look closely at the date and lettering. Some errors display extra thickness or doubling, especially in God We Trust or Liberty. Third, examine the reverse. Certain shield details may appear distorted, off-center, or doubled. These aren't things you can spot at a quick glance. They require patience, magnification, and a sharp eye. But if you find it, the reward could be staggering. Collectors were shocked when the first coin hit auction for nearly $1.7 million. And if another example surfaces, who knows? The price could climb even higher. Because once the world realizes just how rare this error truly is, the demand will skyrocket. So before you brush off that change, before you toss pennies into a jar and forget about them, take a moment to look. That one coin could be your key to financial freedom. It could pay off your debts, change your retirement, even alter your family's future. And here's the haunting truth. Someone watching this right now already has one of these rare pennies in their possession. They just don't know it yet. What looked like a simple penny, a 1979 Lincoln cent, turned out to be one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin history. At first glance, it was ordinary. But when the coin was carefully examined, it revealed a hidden detail so rare, so unlikely, that it transformed an everyday piece of change into a treasure worth up to $1.8 million. Back in 1979, the U.S. Mint in Denver was churning out Lincoln cents by the billions. It was a time of inflation, long gas lines, and Americans tossing pennies into jars, never giving them a second thought. But deep inside those minting machines, a rare mistake slipped through. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't obvious. It was hidden in the smallest of details. But that microscopic difference was enough to set one coin apart from every other cent ever struck that year. Collectors didn't even know it existed at first. For years, this penny traveled silently, from a cashier's drawer, to someone's pocket, to a jar in the back of a dusty closet. Forgotten. Overlooked. Until one day, a collector noticed something strange. A mint mark. The tiny D on the front of the coin, just below the date. At first glance, it was ordinary. But under magnification, the truth emerged. The D was doubled. Not once. Not twice. But in a way that made it leap off the coin. It wasn't supposed to look like that. And in the world of coin collecting, errors like this are not accidents. They are miracles. Words spread fast. Collectors rushed to see if they too had a 1979 Denver Mint cent with the same hidden error. Dealers scrambled, phone calls lit up, auctions went wild. The first confirmed sale of this variety shocked everyone. It crossed the auction block for an eye-popping price, climbing higher and higher until it nearly reached the $1 million mark. And soon after, whispers began. Could one of these pennies really be worth over $1.8 million? Why? Because in coin collecting, rarity is everything. Billions of normal 1979 pennies exist. But this one? This was a ghost. A minting error so scarce that only a handful have ever been confirmed. It's not just about age. It's not just about condition. It's about the anomaly, the flaw that sets it apart. And that flaw made this coin the stuff of legends. And here's where it gets even crazier. Most people miss it. They hold a 1979 D penny in their hand, see nothing unusual, and spend it like any other cent. But under the right light, under a magnifying glass, the difference is undeniable. The D mint mark shows signs of doubling. The strike looks off. Sometimes the date itself carries subtle doubling as well. This is what separates a fortune from a penny worth only 1 cent, but here's the twist. Not every odd-looking 1979 penny is valuable. Plenty of counterfeits exist. Plenty of damaged coins trick beginners. You have to know exactly what to look for. A sharp eye, a trusted guidebook, and preferably a professional grading service are the only ways to know for sure. The true $1,000,000 penny will always reveal itself under expert eyes, and yet, the possibility is what keeps collectors searching. That rush of adrenaline when you dump out a jar of pennies, when you glance at pocket change after buying coffee, when you think, what if? Because history proves it, unbelievable finds do happen. Life-changing coins slip through the cracks every year. Imagine it. You're holding a penny that could pay off your mortgage. A penny that could send your kids to college. A penny that could change your life forever. That's not just money. That's destiny disguised as pocket change. This is why the 1979 D mint mark Lincoln cent has become one of the most talked about coins of its era. Not just because of its value, but because of what it represents. A reminder that even the smallest, most overlooked objects in our lives can carry unimaginable worth. So how do you know if you have the right one? Here's the key. Look closely at the date and the D mint mark. If you see signs of doubling, sharp, clear duplication, not just a blur, you may have stumbled on the real deal. Check the condition. Coins in pristine shape are worth dramatically more. And if you believe you've got one, get it authenticated. That step can make the difference between pocket change and $1,000,000 payday.